What if a soulmate is not someone sent to complete you, but is someone who is finally revealed to the part of you that no longer needs completing? This one idea reverses everything our culture has taught us about the desperate, anxious search for the one. Now, what if, while many are out there chasing a person, the wisest path is to simply prepare your own presence? There is a quiet, divine choreography at play in our lives, introducing us to our deepest connections not through loud, dramatic fireworks, but through a series of subtle, almost invisible alignments that most of us completely miss. In this video, we will explore the overlooked ways God, or the universe, introduces you to your soulmate without you even realizing it, through vibrational matching, divine timing, and the powerful mirror of contrast. This isn't about manifesting tricks. It is about becoming the person your soulmate can finally recognize. Stay with me, because this understanding might just set you free from the chase forever. A soulmate is not sent to complete you. A soulmate is revealed to the part of you that no longer needs completing. Pause for a moment and let that truth settle into your awareness. It is the powerful, gentle reversal of everything the world teaches us about love. While many are out there chasing a person, the wise woman is preparing her presence. And it is so often in the quiet stillness, when you have stopped searching, stopped forcing, and stopped performing, that God gently brings someone into your life. Not with loud fanfare, but with a quiet, undeniable certainty. In this stillness, you are no longer hunting for love, you are becoming love. And from that sacred place, you don't chase your soulmate, you simply recognize them. A woman once asked an old monk, "How will I know when I have finally met the right person?" The monk, silent for a long while, finally answered, "You will know when you are no longer needing them to fix what you refuse to heal within yourself." And this, although simple, is deeply powerful, because before love arrives from the outside, something profound must first awaken from within. 1. Through vibrational match. In the ancient Shaolin tradition, there is a quiet law that governs all connection. First, you must become what you seek. You must embody the very qualities you long to receive, not in a performative way to attract attention, but in an honest, integrated, and embodied manner. This is the essence of what can be called a vibrational match. It is often the very first way God introduces you to your soulmate without you even realizing it. It is not a coincidence that people who carry a deep sense of inner peace often find partners who respect their emotional space and cherish their calm. Nor is it accidental that individuals who carry unresolved inner chaos tend to attract relationships that mirror that very same instability and drama. Energy precedes interaction. What you emit, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, is what you naturally attract into your orbit. This isn't about blame. It is about a profound level of self-awareness and energetic responsibility. From a neuroscience perspective, this makes perfect sense. Your brain is the master pattern recognition machine, constantly scanning the world for what is familiar. Specialized cells called mirror neurons form the basis for empathy and social resonance, allowing us to pick up on the emotional signals of those around us. often without a single word being spoken. This is why you feel calm and can exhale in the presence of a grounded person, and why you might feel restless or on edge in the presence of someone who is internally fragmented. Without realizing it, your nervous system is constantly scanning the world for rhythms that match your own. And here is the powerful, sometimes difficult, truth. When your internal rhythm is anxious, wounded, or desperate, you unconsciously find a strange, painful familiarity in people who mirror that chaotic pattern back to you. Your nervous system can mistake the intensity of a trauma bond for the depth of a soul bond. This is why the sacred journey to your soulmate begins long before you ever meet them. It begins in the quality of your energy. It begins in your daily habits, in the thoughts you entertain in the quiet of the night, in the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening, and in your relationship with stillness. One woman shared her story of constant heartbreak. She said, "Every man I meet ends up taking me for granted. I show up, I give everything I have, and somehow I still end up feeling invisible and unappreciated." Upon deeper, courageous reflection, she began to recognize that her pattern of overgiving was not truly rooted in abundant love, but in a deep, hidden fear, a fear that she wasn't enough just as she was. She was using her care and attention as a currency to buy worthiness. That energy, although subtle, was felt, and the men she attracted responded not to her surface-level generosity, but to her hidden insecurity. When she began to do the inner work, developing a quiet confidence, learning to sit with her own discomfort instead of fleeing into another person's arms, something profound shifted. She began to show up differently in the world. Not louder, not harder, just clearer, softer in her energy, but firmer in her boundaries. And it was during a quiet, uneventful season of her life that she met a man who didn't just admire her light, but who was deeply anchored in his own. There was no chase, no high drama, no fixing, just recognition. This is vibrational match in action. In Eastern philosophy, it is said that the flower does not chase the bee. It simply blooms in its own time and its own way, and the right bee comes. Likewise, a woman grounded in her own sacred essence does not need to perform, convince, or prove. Her presence speaks louder than her words. Her energy introduces her long before she utters a single sentence. There is something holy about a woman who has done her inner work. She is not looking to be rescued. She does not idolize love as a way out of her loneliness. She honors her solitude as sacred preparation, and because of this, when her soulmate finally appears, the connection feels like a divine alignment, not a desperate escape. 2. Through hidden alignments and divine timing, sometimes the hand of God is not revealed in lightning bolts or loud epiphanies. Sometimes it arrives gently, wrapped in the ordinary paper of our daily lives, through interrupted plans, unexpected pauses, and the very situations you were trying to avoid. The second way God introduces you to your soulmate is through hidden alignments and divine timing, delivered in the most ordinary of rhythms. A woman may be delayed on her way to work only to meet a stranger in a quiet coffee shop she never would have entered. A man might be moved to take a different route home from the gym and find himself in a bookstore, drawn into a conversation that changes the course of his life. These are not coincidences, they are divine appointments, and the more present and still you become, the more you begin to recognize their sacred signature. Hidden alignments occur when life reroutes you for something deeper than your current understanding. When God prepares to introduce your soulmate, He often does so through the very path you resisted. A heartbreak that shattered your illusions about love. A job you lost that forced you to move to a new city. A season of deep solitude that at first felt like punishment but was, in fact, sacred preparation. In psychology, this is connected to the principle of cognitive reframing, the ability to reinterpret events in ways that reveal meaning rather than just pain. When you learn to see with spiritual eyes, you begin to see how what was once perceived as a painful delay was actually divine choreography. A woman once shared how she met her partner during what she called the worst year of my life. She had lost her father to illness, ended a long-term relationship, and moved to a new city where she knew no one. She described that year as a season of deep grief and emotional exhaustion. And yet, it was in that very city, during a silent, tearful walk in the park, that she met someone who would later become her husband. I didn't go looking, she said. I was barely even able to receive anything from anyone. But somehow, he met me in my rawness. Not because I was whole, but because I was real. This is how divine timing so often appears, not when we are polished and ready by our ego's standards, but when we are authentic and real by life's standards. Eastern wisdom reminds us that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. In relationships, the same applies. When your spirit is receptive, the right presence enters, not to teach you who you are, but to remind you of what you have been becoming all along. These hidden alignments are also supported by our physiological readiness. When our nervous system is constantly overactivated, driven by fear, scarcity, or desperation, it cannot perceive the subtle, gentle cues of a healthy connection. You may miss the right person standing right in front of you, not because they are absent, but because your body is in a state of chronic vigilance, scanning for threats instead of sensing for peace. It takes inner stillness to perceive grace. It takes inner calm to feel resonance. Many women ask, why am I not meeting anyone who is truly aligned? The answer often lies not in the absence of potential partners, but in the absence of inner attunement. If your days are consumed with noise, mental, emotional, and digital, you will miss the gentle whisper of a divine appointment. You must learn to listen beyond the noise, to sense when something is shifting not externally, but internally, to trust your body when it instinctively relaxes in someone's presence, to notice the doors that close and have the wisdom not to chase after them, to let go of what feels familiar and chaotic so you can receive what feels fated and calm. Divine timing often feels inconvenient to our ego, but it is never late for our soul. Free, through the mirror of contrast, there is a quiet kind of suffering that few speak of. a suffering that lives in the hearts of those who have given themselves fully and loved deeply. Only to feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood, many women carry this burden in silence. They ask themselves, why does real love feel so far away, even when I'm surrounded by people? The answer is often hidden not in what you lack, but in what you have not yet learned to see about yourself. One of the most overlooked and compassionate ways God introduces you to your soulmate without you realizing it is through the powerful mirror of contrast, by first allowing you to encounter the ones you are not meant for. These relationships are not mistakes, they are not punishments, they are divine awakeners. They come into your life to show you, with undeniable clarity, where you are still disconnected from yourself, where you still settle for less than you deserve, where you still mistake the fireworks of chemistry for the deep resonance of compatibility, and the desperate grip of attachment for the open hand of love. In Eastern teachings, contrast is the way the Tao reveals harmony. You only truly appreciate peace after tasting chaos. You only value depth after experiencing emptiness. Similarly, you often come to recognize your soulmate by first encountering what your soul cannot and will not align with. It is through the wrong loves that you begin to truly calibrate your inner compass. Neuroscience supports this through the concept of pattern recognition. The human brain is wired to seek familiarity, but it can also learn through repeated, painful contrast. When you date someone who is manipulative, then someone who is emotionally unavailable, then someone who ghosts you, your subconscious mind is being given a powerful lesson. It is being forced to compare the data. At some point, if you are awake and willing to see, you begin to recognize the common denominator, not just the kind of people you have chosen, but the energy in you that allowed and perhaps even sought out those choices. A woman once fell in love with a man who could not love her back. He was charming and attentive in public, but cold and dismissive when no one was watching. She stayed for years, believing her love could teach him how to love, that her light could heal his darkness. But time passed, and her own spirit withered. She said, "I lost my glow, I lost my voice, I thought I was being loyal, but I was just afraid to start over again." When she finally found the courage to walk away, it wasn't because she stopped loving him, it was because she started remembering to love herself. The pain of that relationship became her sacred mirror, not because he changed, but because she did. This is how God uses contrast. It's never just about the other person, it's about the reflection they trigger in you. Sometimes, it is only after being unseen that you learn how to truly see yourself. It is only after being abandoned that you learn the profound importance of staying rooted in your own soul. Contrast also serves to sharpen your discernment. You begin to notice what your spirit viscerally reacts to. You start to feel, in your body, when someone's words don't match their energy. You stop making excuses for red flags. You become more sensitive, not in a fragile way, but in a spiritually intelligent way. Psychologically, this is known as interoception, the ability to read the internal signals from your body. The more aware you are of your bodily responses, the better you can detect whether a person is activating your peace or your survival mode. Your body becomes the gateway to truth, overriding the fantasies of your mind. Contrast reveals your thresholds. What you used to tolerate now becomes intolerable. That validation you once chased, you now realize was just a temporary fix for a deeper wound of self-worth. And suddenly, the way you love changes. You stop begging, you stop bargaining, you begin to hold yourself with a sacred dignity. A man once said to a woman, "You're too much, you're too intense, too emotional." She spent years shrinking herself to fit into his small world. But after the relationship ended and she began her healing, she met someone new who said to her, "Your depth is beautiful, your intensity makes me feel alive." That was the contrast. The very same qualities that repelled the wrong one became sacred in the presence of the right one. When God brings contrast into your life, He is not being cruel. He is allowing you to shed your illusions. He is teaching you, through experience, how to trust your own reflection. Because when your soulmate arrives, you will recognize them not through dazzling fireworks, but through a quiet, deep, and soul-level resonance. And resonance only happens when your spirit is no longer confused by dysfunction. You begin to crave a kind of simplicity, not in a boring way, but in a peaceful way. The loud, dramatic passion that always left you feeling drained no longer appeals to you. Now, you want someone who makes your nervous system exhale. Someone whose presence doesn't confuse you, but confirms you. That's how contrast works. It detoxes your emotional palate so you can finally taste what is pure. And this brings us to the final, most mysterious way God introduces you to your soulmate without you realizing it, through a profound inner stillness that transcends all logic. You begin to crave a kind of simplicity, not in a boring way, but in a profoundly peaceful way. The loud, dramatic passion that always left you feeling drained no longer appeals to you. Now, you want someone whose presence makes your nervous system exhale, someone whose energy doesn't confuse you, but confirms you. That is how the mirror of contrast works. It detoxes your emotional palate so you can finally taste what is pure. And this brings us to the fourth, most mysterious way God introduces you to your soulmate without you realizing it. For, through inner stillness and non-seeking, there is a quiet, sacred paradox that governs many of life's most profound experiences, especially love. The more you desperately seek something to fill a void, the more it seems to retreat from you. The more you grasp at it, the more elusive it becomes. And yet, when you release the attachment, when you no longer demand that love fill a void inside of you, that very thing often appears, not because you chased it, but because you finally became an energetic match for it. This is the deep mystery of inner stillness. It is in this stillness that God often introduces us to our soulmate. In the teachings of Eastern philosophy, there is a concept that can be traced through various paths of wisdom. Non-seeking is the highest form of readiness. This doesn't mean you stop participating in life or hide away from the world. It means your entire inner posture shifts. You are no longer defined by your longing. You are no longer dominated by the emotional hunger to be chosen. And in that sacred space, When your identity is not rooted in another's presence or approval, your energy softens, your heart opens, and your vision clears. You become ready without ever reaching for it. This stillness is not passive. It is power in its most refined and potent form. Think of a great mountain, immovable, silent, yet completely and powerfully present. Everything around it, the wind, the water, the passing weather, may change, but the mountain remains steady, grounded in its own essence. When you, as the woman, reach this inner state, you become that mountain, whole within yourself, unshaken by the rush of societal timelines or the noise of external expectations. It is from this place of profound self-possession that your energy begins to draw in what is meant for you. Not through force, but through pure resonance. One woman shared a story with me once. For many years, she had pursued love with the urgency of someone drowning. Every date was laced with the anxious question, "Is this him?" Every silence in a conversation felt like a wound. Every rejection felt like a final verdict on her value. She tried everything, self-help books, coaches, even scripting affirmations, but nothing lasted. Each man that entered her life seemed to reflect back her own inner turbulence. She was always chasing, always trying to prove she was worthy of love, until one day, something shifted. It wasn't a grand, cinematic moment. It came in the middle of a quiet morning as she sat drinking tea by herself. She looked around her small apartment and noticed how deeply peaceful it felt. There was no one else there, no text messages coming in, no promises to distract her, just herself, her breath, and her own quiet stillness. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel lonely. She felt profoundly whole. In that stillness, the desperate need to be chosen simply dissolved, because she realized she had finally, fully chosen herself. Within a few months, she met a man in the most ordinary of places, a local library. Their conversation began not from a place of need, but from a place of shared peace. And now, years later, they are still together, not as two broken halves completing each other, but as two whole beings walking beside each other. 5. Through elevation, there comes a time in a woman's life when she must recognize that her heart is not a doorway for anyone who merely knocks loud enough. It is, instead, a sacred temple, one that only opens for those who approach it with reverence, patience, and the wisdom to understand that true love is not a convenience, but a commitment. This reveals one of the most overlooked ways God introduces a woman to her soulmate, through her elevation. When she elevates her standards, her self-awareness, and her energetic frequency, she rises above the noise of false connection. And in that elevated space, her soulmate finally appears. Elevation is not about becoming superior to others. It is about becoming deeply aligned with your truest, highest self. And this alignment changes everything. Many women wonder why the same kind of emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or immature partners keep showing up in their lives. But the deeper question is not, why do they show up? It is, why do they continue to have access? The answer lies in the frequency from which a woman operates. When she is stuck in self-doubt, a feeling of scarcity, or emotional fatigue, she vibrates at a level that naturally attracts those who confirm that very state. But the moment she begins to elevate mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, she no longer operates on that same frequency. She becomes energetically unreachable to the very ones who once found easy entry into her life. There's a powerful parable told in many traditions about a woman who climbs a mountain, not to conquer it, but to meet herself at the summit. Along the way, she sheds the heavy layers of her past, old beliefs that no longer serve her, societal expectations that were never hers, and wounds she mistook for her personality. With each step upward, her breath deepens, her vision sharpens, and her strength grows. When she finally reaches the top, she doesn't find another person waiting to rescue her. She finds herself whole and complete, and it is in that sacred moment of self-recognition that another climber appears, not one who was carried there, but one who climbed his own mountain with his own effort, his own humility, and his own grace. They meet not because they searched for each other, but because they both chose to rise. Elevation, in this context, means taking radical responsibility for your internal state. It means no longer blaming past lovers, absent fathers, or societal narratives for your pain. Yes, those things hurt. Yes, they shaped your perspective, but your healing is your sacred responsibility, and healing is the first act of elevation. When you stop using your past as a blueprint for your future, you begin to carve a new path, one where your worth is not measured by someone's willingness to choose you, but by your unwavering willingness to choose yourself. Again and again, a woman once told me that for most of her 20s and 30s, she lived in constant fear of being alone. This fear made her say yes to things she didn't want, stay in relationships that drained her spirit, and shrink herself to fit into someone else's small world. She thought that love required sacrifice, and that the more she gave up for a man, the more valuable she would become in his eyes. But it never worked. The more she gave, the more they took. The more she waited, the more she was delayed. One day, after another painful ending, she stood in front of the mirror and asked a different question. Not, "What's wrong with me?" but, "What have I been accepting as normal that is actually a profound self-abandonment?" That one question changed her life. She stopped dating for validation and started dating herself, buying herself flowers, taking herself on trips, listening to her own needs. She learned to say no without guilt and yes without fear. She stopped trying to impress anyone and started to impress herself. Over time, her energy shifted. She no longer tolerated ambiguity. She stopped explaining her worth to people who couldn't see it. And soon enough, the type of men who used to pursue her simply faded away. Not because she was hiding, but because she was no longer energetically within their reach. Instead, a new kind of man entered her life, a man who respected her time, cherished her presence, and showed up with consistency. He didn't complete her, he matched her, because she had elevated, and he could now meet her where she stood. Elevation means you act as if what you desire is already present. So you align with it now, not later. It also means being willing to let go of what you used to think love looked like. Sometimes the biggest obstacle between a woman and her soulmate is the outdated fantasy of love she refuses to release. She wants the intense chemistry without the grounding of compatibility. She wants the fiery passion without the deep peace. But true love, the kind that lasts, is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, soft, and steady. If you are addicted to the energy of chaos, the energy of peace will feel boring at first. But when you elevate, your nervous system begins to heal. And when it heals, it begins to crave what is healthy, not just what is familiar. This is why God often introduces your soulmate only after you have outgrown who you used to be. Not because you weren't worthy before, but because you weren't yet ready to recognize or sustain that level of sacred connection. Just as a mountain climber can only breathe easily at higher altitudes once they have properly acclimated, your soul must be prepared to handle the depth, safety, and intimacy of divine love, and that preparation happens through your own elevation. Imagine two frequencies on a radio dial. One is crackling with the static of past hurts, disconnection, and old programs. The other is a clear, strong signal tuned to divine alignment. You cannot receive the clear broadcast if you refuse to move your dial. Elevation is the movement. You start by asking better questions. Not, why doesn't he love me? But, why am I tolerating this? Not, what can I do to make him stay? But, what do I lose of myself by making space for someone who can't truly see me? These questions aren't comfortable, but they are catalytic. They spark the awareness that is the very seed of transformation. Elevation also means honoring seasons of solitude. There are times when God will hide you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. He removes distractions, closes doors, and silences the noise so you can hear your own soul more clearly. So you can heal without interference. So you can rise without comparison. These seasons may feel empty, but they are sacred. The woman who honors these quiet seasons will emerge with a strength that is not loud, but unshakable. In Buddhist tradition, there is a saying, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. But that realization only comes when you stop trying to force life into your timeline and start flowing with a divine rhythm. Elevation means you stop rushing, you stop comparing, you stop trying to earn what is already yours by divine right. You understand that what is truly aligned with your soul cannot miss you. So you prepare, you rise, you become. When we look at how God, or the universe, introduces a woman to her soulmate, it is never in the way the world teaches, through chasing, striving, or settling. Instead, it is in the quiet moments of alignment, the brave acts of setting contrasting boundaries, the sacred pauses of stillness, and the courageous choice to elevate. Your soulmate is not found in the noise of desperation, but revealed in the clarity of your self-awareness. He is not summoned by your loneliness, but by your wholeness. He is not drawn to your wounds, but to your wisdom. Every moment you spend learning how to sit with yourself, honor your spirit, and walk away from what diminishes you. You are not delaying love. You are preparing for the version of love that can truly meet and mirror your highest self. This journey is not about finding someone to complete you. It is about becoming someone who no longer abandons herself. It is about realizing that the love you desire is already forming at the level where your soul is being called to rise. So listen to that call, honor the process, trust the divine timing, because when you become the woman who has healed, elevated, and learned how to protect her own peace, your soulmate will not be late. He will be right on time, because your paths were never meant to cross in your brokenness, but to meet in your becoming. If this message has resonated with your soul, please honor that connection by giving this video a like. It helps us reach more women who are on this sacred path. And if you wish to continue this journey of elevation with us, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell for more deep, timeless wisdom. And now, I would love for us to create a space of shared intention. In the comments below, I invite you to write one word that represents the energy you are choosing to cultivate in your life. Is it stillness, wholeness, clarity, elevation? Let your comment be a declaration to yourself and to the universe. Thank you for your beautiful presence. Remember, the love you seek is already seeking you. At the level of your highest self, rise to meet it. Until next time.